Hey everybody, Matt Colville here. This really will be a short video because I think we've done something like 4 hours worth of video content over the last 2 days. I uploaded a Q&A video on Saturday morning just to catch everybody up with how things are going, and then we began the process of the Twitch building a campaign thing. I don't know what to call it. We streamed the act of building a campaign world. We started with an impromptu stream on Saturday night. I didn't announce it or anything. I just wanted to test the technology, and then we actually started doing it Sunday at 11 o'clock, and I think it went incredibly well. And the reason I'm doing a video Monday is to give context to those videos. I recommend you go watch them on Twitch. You can watch the archive on the YouTube channel, but the problem with that is you don't get to see the chat. And I think the chat is a big component of it. The reason I did this was basically to show you how easy and fun it can be to create your own campaign world, starting with, obviously, you're not necessarily going to have hundreds of people in Twitch chat. That was kind of crazy. I think we got close to 1,000 people in the chat, and I really didn't expect to have that many people in there. But my point is, you can download Hexographer. I do recommend it. I've used it a lot. I use it to make my campaign maps, and I like Hexographer for a lot of reasons. One of them is I like hexes. I fundamentally like hexes. I don't like the Forgotten Realms maps because I look around and I'm like, I don't understand, where are the countries? Where does this area start and this area end? Whereas with hexes, we have built-in provinces, because I like running a game. This is just down to taste. I like running a game that has politics in it. I like knowing who's in charge of this kingdom. Where is the edge of this duchy? And so for me, hexes are great. Plus, hexes give us a great obvious unit of measurement. I like a 24 miles per hex because a normal person can walk 3 miles per hour. And if you walk 8 hours a day, that means you've walked 24 miles or 1 hex in a day. That assumes a road. Obviously, if you're walking where there aren't roads, it gets tougher. And obviously through forests and mountains, you get even slower. But you can use a hex map and roads, and you can tell how long does it take to get from point A to point B just by counting the hexes. So I like hexes, and Hexographer is great because you can just click generate a random map, and it builds a random world for you of any size with whatever kind of terrain you want to favor, and then you can spend your time modifying the map to taste. I think you know, if you followed my how to create a character video, that I like that oracular process of we're going to roll the bones and it's going to tell us, Hexographer is going to tell us about this campaign setting. So that's the point of this video, is to give you context for the stream we did, which you should watch on Twitch, and understand that I'm recommending, if you want to build your own campaign setting, you can start with something like Hexographer and say, just give me a random world, and then modify it to taste. In fact, let's take a look at where we started and where we ended up so you get some idea of what I'm talking about. This is the actual randomly generated map in Hexographer, and as soon as I saw it, I don't know, I think we had generated maybe 10 or 15 maps in the stream before we hit upon this one. I immediately fell in love with it because it has this great feature dominating it in the middle, this broken mountain range. In no way did I design that mountain range. It's got a great pass right in the middle, and it's got, a little bit of modification, and we have access to an ocean in the lower left, and we've got desert, and we've got forest, and we have plains, and we have all the stuff that I think you need for a good campaign setting. I then, after the Twitch stream was over on Saturday night and we had generated the random map, I started monkeying around with it. I started customizing it to make it look a little bit more like a world and less like a randomly generated bunch of hexes. And so what we got was this. This is where we ended up. You can see that I've made it look a lot more like a world. I've created distinct regions, right? So you have the swamp over here on the left. We have forests down south. We have a distinct desert on the right. And these are the names that the folks in Twitch chat came up with. There's a lot of data about who lives there. This was not me. I didn't decide that these people in the south were the Bantur steppe, the Mongol horsemen, which I think was really cool. And the Vale, the forest of the Vale, where the elves, the wood elves, live, and there's a fog there that keeps them immortal, and there's a reason that fog keeps them immortal. And the Zir, the desert of Zir, where the Dragonborn live, and these guys are they're not nomadic. They have a city. They are a culture. They're a civilized culture. Somebody said their city would be a city of glass, and I thought, wow, that was fantastic. I really like the idea of, sand is the main ingredient of glass, is super abundant in the desert, and dragons have a built-in, furnace for creating the fire necessary to melt it. So I started to think, wow, I think the people of Zir, or the dragon men of Zir, maybe even have crystal plate and crystal swords. They make glass armor and weapons, and it's not normal glass, it's dragon fired glass, and that's stronger. And then we had these kingdoms in the north. We have the Northern Sanction, and it was called the Sanction because the ancient dwarven Thane granted it to the people. And there's 3 kingdoms up here. There's Haldrim, Ardenia, and Cardus. Those sounded like good names to me. And then we have these dwarves in the north, the dwarves of Corim. They're the only dwarves left. There used to be dwarves here on the Broken Spine. Why is it called the Broken Spine? Because the founder of the ancient dwarven nation slew the titan that lived under the mountain, and killing that titan broke the mountain range, but founded the first civilization of the dwarves, which has, in the thousands of years since, collapsed, and now it's overrun by Dwagar and Drow. So this pass here, we talked about how this human civilization has a fort in the middle of the plains here, and there's going to be a city down here by this bay. The humans are always fighting to control this pass, so they have access to the bay. We're only about halfway done. We're going to get together again, I think probably this next Sunday at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, and maybe finish it. We streamed for about 2 hours, and at that point, I started to get a little burned out. My throat was hoarse, and just the process of sifting through Twitch chat and monitoring it and trying to find good, inspiring names was a lot more work than I thought, but we were able to do it. I had this idea in my head that I would be looking through all the comments, trying to find the best comment, the best idea, but there are just too many people, and I realized that's silly. There is no best idea. Really, all I'm looking for is an idea that strikes my imagination and fits, what I think of as the rest of the world, and that was actually pretty easy to do. Most of what I was doing in the Twitch chat wasn't coming up with names for stuff. That was all the users in chat. Most of what I was doing was explaining the dramatic consequences of what we see in this world. I was always saying, okay, if this is what lives here, tell me something interesting about these people. Tell me something interesting about these dwarves. Tell me something interesting about the people that live here in the desert. And now that I know that, what does that mean, right? Because I think all good drama is just a sequence of therefore and then but, right? We have these guys that live over here, therefore they need control of the pass, but they're constantly fighting these guys here. Like the nation of Cardus to the east has the largest army, but they're not able to contribute their soldiers to the pass. If they were, then it would be safe and there'd be no drama, but they can't contribute their soldiers to guard the pass because they're dealing with the influx of Yuan-Ti coming from the east, because the Yuan-Ti are constantly warring with the dragon men of Zir, and they're losing. So they're going over the mountains and trying to find refuge. So the men of Cardus are constantly fighting against these Yuan-Ti. And that gives you some idea of how I think when I'm building a world, or really when I'm telling any story. All right, that was a cool idea we came up with, but what does that idea mean? What are the consequences of that idea? Where does the drama and the tension come from? I think most of the Twitch chat was just me saying, all right, who lives here? Because I think that, people are important, whether they're dwarf people or elf people or dragon people. Who lives here? And now tell me something interesting about these people. And once I knew something interesting about them, I could say, all right, well, therefore what? And if we know therefore, then but these guys want to hold the pass, but the steppe nomads want to guard the volcano god, but, right? So there's a whole bunch of drama in here. I think we made a lot of progress. So I think we're off to a good start. I think we have the first half of a pretty good setting, and maybe we'll get it done next week. Maybe it'll take 2 more streams. I'm not sure. There's a link in the doobly-doo to the Hexographer file in case you want to open it up and monkey around with it yourself, along with the a PDF of the write-up. I was constantly keeping notes and saying, okay, who lives here? Tell us something about these guys, so you can get a little bit of the history of the world we've created so far. I had described the world as not being a high fantasy, high magic world, but a lot of people were responding as though it seemed to them as though this was high magic, right? There's an empire of Dragonborn in the east that have a city of glass. And to me, high fantasy and high magic is mostly about, like, what do normal everyday people experience? If you're one of the normal citizens of the Northern Sanction, you're a regular farmer, you don't use magic to, deal with your crops, you're worried about bandits, you're worried about who controls the pass, and your life in that area is probably pretty similar to life anywhere in medieval Europe, in the Dark Ages. And so to me, that's still a low fantasy setting. To me, high fantasy means, like, I remember opening up the Forgotten Realms box set and finding out that you'd go to just a random town in the middle of nowhere, and there'd be a 22nd level bard living there who had opened an inn, right? That to me is high magic. Or Tolis by Monty Cook, which is a fantastic setting. It's just one city, but the book is like 1,000 pages long. It weighs about 40 pounds. It costs like $100. I love it. It's a great setting, but that's a place that has flying carpets for taxi cabs, right? A normal citizen of Tolis sees magic stuff all the time. So even though there is some epic stuff, even though there is some high fantasy elements in this setting, to me, I don't think that affects the average citizen. If you're one of these Mongol horsemen, you spend most of your time living life just the same way the Mongols did in the 12th century. And so to me, that's not really high fantasy. So I recommend watching the Twitch stream. There's a link to that in the doobly-doo, and even though it's really long, you get to see the process and all the ideas fly by, and you get to see how I thought about stuff and my rationale for picking this over that. And that's it. Really, I just wanted to show you how much fun it can be and how easy it can be using a program like Hexographer. And there are other tools online for generating random worlds, but using a random world generator to fuel your imagination. Obviously, you can begin with your own ideas, right? My campaign, The Age of Chaos, did not begin with a random Hexographer map. But I've always really liked generating random worlds in these programs and always wanted to kind of run something generated in a random world. And so we've begun that process, and hopefully it stimulates your thought and makes you think, wow, actually, it's pretty easy to just start with a program like Hexographer, generate a random world, and start populating it. And you don't need to finish it to start playing, right? As soon as you've got a local area, as soon as you know something, I think you're ready to get started. And you should always be, I think all dungeon masters who create their own world are always adding to them over time. It is never a process that finishes or stops. So you kind of have to give yourself permission to start running the game, even though you don't have everything worked out yet. I hope you find the Twitch stream interesting. I hope you're inspired to create your own campaign setting. I don't think it's very difficult. I think it's a lot of fun. This Thursday's video, we're going to find out what happened to the party last Thursday. It was pretty epic. I was incredibly happy with how things turned out. I think the players had fun. We'll find out. And hopefully we'll see you this Sunday in the Twitch stream at 11 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, where we continue making a world. I'm Matt Colville on Twitch. I'm Matt Colville on Twitter. As always, I am an independent fantasy author. If you want to help support the channel, please come by my Amazon page. There's another link in the doobly-doo. I've written 2 books. I'm working on the 3rd book. One of the reasons I wanted to do this was because I wanted to prep a campaign setting so that in a future video, I could show you how I would prep a starting adventure like The Lost Mine of Phandelver. And that way I have now a campaign setting that Lost Mine of Phandelver can live in. And that way we can make characters together maybe in Twitch and talk about, all right, who are the heroes in this adventure? And once I know the campaign setting, and once I know who the PCs are and where in the campaign setting they're from, then we can start the process of prepping the adventure. We can find hooks for the characters and hooks for where to put the adventure. So this is all part of a process, hopefully making you more confident in your dungeon mastering and world building skills. Even though we have story time every week and sometimes we talk about some heady matters, I really do want this channel to be about empowering new dungeon masters. And so this whole process on Twitch was just to show you how much fun it can be to make a world. The flip side of that, of course, is that I also recommend, depending on how much time you have, to buy a prepackaged campaign setting. Sometimes that's better. We'll do videos about those. You know, the Forgotten Realms, Planescape, Dark Sun, Birthright, the Wilderlands of high fantasy. There are tons of great campaign settings out there. There's one, I think, for you. All right, that's it. Short video, I promised. I'll see you guys this Thursday. We'll do a video, another campaign diary, and then Sunday morning, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, we'll be back on Twitch to finish this campaign world we've created. Until next time, peace out.